When I'm getting high or tuning into a higher state, right, I'm reminded of different concepts that I was in previous times just reaching the surface of, just scratching beneath the surface kind of thing, picking at it and unveiling another truth, these elusive truths, which could be the answer to a lot of things. A lot of things. Right, and one of the truths being something about the interactions between us as a form of consciousness with an object that's been manifested as a form of consciousness. Whether we think it's through manufacture, through design from ourselves, or whether it's been like that without our participation, it doesn't matter. All objects have just come to be. And it reminded me of the Stormlight Archive. I think that's the series title for which I'm referring to, where there's a storyline that says that these characters, these protagonists in the storyline, they basically have had access somehow. They've developed and they've suddenly gained access to some form of wizardry and manipulation of matter. It's some kind of skill that they have, like a superpower, and in layman's terms. And so one of them is about communicating with different objects. And I guess their frequencies of communication, and this is, I'm saying all objects, all things, the notion, well, a notion, and a notion. Wow, an ocean. I said an ocean because I'm also thinking about, in the story, these all obstacles, all objects, all what we perceive as without consciousness objects, they live on another plane of existence, and when the planes meet, and there's a possible bridge in between these planes of existence, all the objects are represented as little spheres, and they're all the same, about the same size. So they're uniform in size as their appearance, because they all just represent an object. And when we connect with that sphere of a particular object, we pick up that sphere and we understand the whole story, the character. That sphere is like the little pebble in order to communicate with the object that you're experiencing, trying to communicate with. And so these characters with these magical powers, they're able to communicate with objects, really understand their story. And when they get to know them, then the objects start to like open up and trust that it's a genuine bond, and that it's not just like a freak coincidence. And once they've established a more genuine bond and understand each other, the object and the person, the like tourist into their world, once they've formed a bond, then they can be manipulated into doing things. We, I think, generally have a pleasing, default. Like, we naturally want to help others and please others. And so with that in mind, if we ask a favor of the object, oh, can you do this? The object will just comply. And we're allowed to, manipulate objects in this storyline. This concept, this story, and in the Stormlight Archive, there's something to it that now when I understand this story, it reminds me how this experience, let's say humans, conscious humans, in an ego state of like a lower sober frequency, we like to learn through stories. And the more that we really identify with the story and the story communicates to us, there's a lot of purpose behind a very good story. And it's being distilled down from a higher source. And a higher source of our experience can try and communicate to us via stories. It's a very effective way of understanding things, of learning, of communication, of knowing. It's a higher form of it. And so, you could call it like an information highway, which is, I think, a very appropriate term, because it's a highway that we're able to just jump onto through a variety of means. But any portal can open us up to this kind of information highway. And this information highway is coming from a higher source, a higher frequency. And so when we find a portal and we jump into that and we have access to the information highway, we have access to deeper truths and understanding. And we're not able to just take that and run. We have to stay in that stream of consciousness, or that information highway, and of communication. And we have to just ride that. And the more that we ride it, the more of the truthful story unravels itself to us. And through the story, through the actual communication, understanding of the nature of all things, we get closer to an actual truth, right? A truth for why do we exist, like a super deep truth that could change a lot of things in this experience, in our default sober state. But the truths usually are not to our pleasing, because the truths usually lie in, one of the things that helps us evolve is being in a higher frequency. And so because we've rebelled so much in our ego state, in our sober state, we've rebelled so much against this perception of getting high, or being inebriated, or being autistic, or being any other form than our generalized sober state. Anything that falls outside of that spectrum of energetic frequency, then we deem it as not worthy. But I think those are other forms of higher frequency in different shapes and forms. But in general, they could be accessing a much higher form. And they're in a transitionary stage where they are able to access all of these amazing truths and stuff. But because they're tied still physiologically to a body of a lower energetic frequency, then they can't coexist in harmony. It's like, what I'm saying is, It's like, in order to stay in this form of reality, we need to play by this forms of reality's rules, and some of which are, you must stay in a lower frequency. You must stay on this frequency, as in you must be sober. So you must abstain from various chemicals and psychoactive ingredients and things like that, and you must not you must not stray from this kind of energetic frequency. And so it takes ownership of this, and it creates this form of what we have today as the average individual, right, in their sober, natural default state, with a way of thinking that's locked to this kind of energetic frequency. Everything has been built to function, and we call this whole existence ego. And high is on a higher frequency, and this higher and higher frequencies in general are able to tune in to the information highway. Clue is in the name. And have access to truths, to much deeper truths of understanding of all things. It gets us higher to closer and faster to pure consciousness, or source, God, whatever it is, to unity, or to the universe, whatever we want to call it. They get us much closer and quicker there. It's a faster way to evolve. It's a faster way to level up and transform, to evolve, to move on, to grow, to mature as this form of consciousness. But the thing is, ego doesn't want to let go. Ego denies these existences, these truths. Ego's been having a good time controlling their own world, manifesting things on their frequency, controlling everything to their will, really using free will and just manifesting their own world that they can be in control of. It's like they're playing. It's like we're just playing. Ego is some kind of infantile state of a form, I don't know, of a being, of an entity. And high is maybe just like a parent. Maybe high is actually of higher rank as well, because we understand ego more than ego understands itself. And high is just an evolved state. It's a higher frequency. It's closer to unity than ego. And so high understands that the best way ego learns is through stories, and through the forbidden higher frequencies, the portals to higher frequencies, right? And the portals can be anything. Recently I realized a portal could definitely be dancing really close to each other in a very rhythmic way. I call it close form, where we're dancing in unison in a very rhythmic way, completely in tune with each other. And when we do that very effectively through practice, that's just an example of a portal that opens where both individuals are teleported somewhere. That might not necessarily be a form of high. It might not be taking you to a higher frequency, but it might be a teleportation to some other place, some unknown place. I think it's better to reunite with memories of what it's like when you're in a flow state with dance. Because when you're in that state, I think we experience some things that are difficult to describe. And so when we come back to a sober state, we have a loose memory of it because it's so elusive. It's of a different frequency. So our memories can't even keep a grasp of it. Right, so the Stormlight Archive, I believe, is the series that I'm referring to, yes, about these magicians who are able to manipulate matter, let's say. They were able to actually manipulate matter. It starts with objects, and then elements can also be objects. And so you're able to manipulate anything that you want. And these superhero powers are more of a representation that the ego form, this physical form that we have, that we can tell stories about, and a higher state form, a form of no mass. It can take forms of mass, but it prefers to stay formless. But it has access to truths and understanding and ways of manifestation. That's the thing. It's like magic, manifestation. The power to manifest things is a learned skill of a much higher frequency, of a much higher energetic level and ability. Another form of consciousness. To us, they have magical powers because we can't fathom that form, that level of manifesting power. We're trying to learn that ourselves in ego. We crave it, but because we're limited in our lower frequencies and in this experience, ego can't possibly get anywhere close to that level of godhood. Because we've come from a place of wanting to create our own worlds, our own experience, our own little playground. But when we see a way that it's possible to gain any kind of superpower, any kind of ability to manifest a new way of existing, a new way of being, or a new way of possibility, defying, smashing previous notions of a law of physics or anything like that. It's very elusive, so and tantalizing. So ego wants to jump at that and grab at that. So these, coming back to the notion of high being some kind of parent to us, ego being some kind of child. High high is like possibly like well, it could be anything to us, but it could be our mother if we needed to. It could be a lost partner. It could be a lost sibling. It could manifest itself into into a pet, into a spirit animal. It could manifest its way into any kind of form, anything that we require to listen to it. And when you're high, you listen. And truths will come. And we can evolve with it if we relinquish our little grasp on our little world, on our little playground. We have to let go now. We have to try and keep trying and keep trying to listen to high. Listen to a higher frequency, a higher energetic vibration level. I don't know how else to call it. Listen to high. Because high is going to help you grow up. And high is going to help you be the best you can be. But right now, we are not in a position to understand things yet. We have to grow. And in order to grow, we have to go find the way to grow. And one of the ways is following stories. Because this is the level that we're at, consciously. This manifested form is just like a child, right? And in order to learn and grow and actually mature, infants need to listen to stories. That's the best way they learn. And a parent knows that. So that's why I'm thinking high might be a parent. It might be a paternal or maternal character for us, for ego, in general. Because we all share this state. We all share this commonality. That our form that we choose to live, our form of existence, our manifestation, this state we can identify as ego, and ego is just a child. We have limited capacities. And so we try to manifest our world to our will, to say, yeah, we can do anything we want. You know, rebelling against truths from authority, from a higher source. We're a bit belligerent, and we're a bit know-it-all, much like a child. But high persists and high knows. So they know to use stories. And so they try to... The only way they can really communicate with us is through these portals, and also through sending clever messages through hidden backdoor entrances. Like they try and slide it, you know, it's like the pill in the sandwich or something like that. The pill in the meat. You know, if you were to feed a dog, if you were to try and apply medicine to a dog, you know, that higher being, that pet owner, and the dog being the lower being, the pet owner knows that it needs to think of clever ways to, you know, manipulate and to just kind of help the dog, medicate the dog, or in our case to just whisper subconscious forms of information through stories. We pick up on that really well, as opposed to learning academically, where that's something of our making, to teach ourselves, to pass it on. But from a much better, more reliable, more mature, more truthful source, a higher source of information. High is trying to deliver that to us, kind of subconsciously, because if we were to be aware of it consciously, we would deny it because we're a bit rebellious. So yeah, one of these little back entrances is through story, and now I'm starting to visualize it like, for a moment, ego finds a portal to a slightly higher form of being, a state, a higher state. And so we evolve momentarily, and I'm visualizing it now as ego evolves into like being that of a teenager. And this teenager is mischievous, and the ego together with high are little mischievous friends, and high is trying to tell ego things. High is from, we can characterize high as whatever we want, whatever that works for us to better understand the story. That's all high is. High is like trying to play any character that works for us in order to listen and hear the stories, and the stories being codes of higher understanding and learning and stuff that's going to actually help us evolve consciously, because that's all that really counts here. The ego experience is just a playground for this little form of consciousness, this little kid. And it's like, no, it's stop playing now, it's time to grow up. It's time to actually find some deeper truths, and they can only be played with if we grow up a bit, if we mature and evolve into a higher state, if we go from child to teenager. Because we have a long way to go. We have a really long way to go. As being manifested forms of consciousness, we have a long way to go. So I think, yeah, I feel it's like I can visualize it as, we're trying to hang out with high in this example and listen to high stories. Because High's another kid like our age, another mischievous, story-driven kid. And they want to tell us all the cool stuff that they've been up to today, as an example. And so we can write a story for ego to take away and ingest in their own time, whether through a written book or an audio book from that written book. It can be a video series on TV. It can be a form of scripture. It can be any kind of recorded form of information, or not even just written. It can be any form of information that we are able to retain. So one excellent way is through stories. So whatever story we want to make up that allows us to listen to what High has to say, it's a story that we should invest in and cultivate. Because out of that story, if you follow it, listening to High and tuning into a higher frequency in order to do that, then the story is going to tell you some truths and help you grow the fuck up. And I'm saying you as in not an individual person listening, but you as in this collective form called ego. Ego needs to grow the fuck up. So yeah, high could be like yeah, anything that suits us to better understand high. Anything high needs to be, high will need to be for us individuals, for us individual egos, right? For each individual ego, high will be whatever high needs to be in order to better communicate with us. And then, we can follow high on all these crazy adventures and stories. And whatever story you as an individual ego latch onto, that's your variation of a truth. But it doesn't really matter. There's so many truths. It's an unlimited thing because we're so used to living in this ego state where we have a kind of universal truth and understanding of law, of how things are. We have the laws of physics and things like that. We've established all this because that's our world that we manifested, that we try and control, right? We say we're seeking more information, but really we're just playing with our own toys. So yeah, in my personal form of reality and understanding, my personal story that I'm telling, I'm visualizing high like an older sister. Yeah, that might change. Who knows? I was starting to see high could possibly be like a mother, but maybe a mother form. If high takes a mother form, maybe that speaks much more closely and deeply to someone who has lost their mother and who never got to know their mother and who was rejected by her mother. Any of these forms, any of these kind of narratives, I can certainly see high taking on that kind of role and being incredibly impactful, incredibly deeply, like with empathy. If you feel like high represents a mother form that's been a void in your life, and they then tell these stories to you, maybe that's how people think God is. Maybe that's how that form of information is able to get to them, because they're spiritual like that. They're not necessarily, but with religion, that's more, that's less spiritual and more just religious, more kind of believing a doctrine. Anyway, yes, so in my case, it's like a sister that I never had. And she's also mischievous because I'm mischievous. So she's going to be my best friend. And that works for me. I think subconsciously I can psychoanalyze myself and say why I chose a sister, a mischievous sister. Growing up, I had a lot of female friends over male friends. Let's not get into it. But that's formed my personality, and I think that's informed why high is starting to shift into this kind of like older sister persona, this character that she needs to be. And it's a she. I've given it a gender because that also works for me. Yes, so I'm visualizing it. God, I wish I was a good illustrator. I wish I could learn how to illustrate very quickly, much like making voice notes. with automatic transcription, this works for me to pick through it like reading a story, like reading a lengthy novel. I want to pick out the gems of information and put it together so I can better understand, so I can evolve, right? Because these are all nuggets of truths that can only be fed to us through a higher frequency, right? And a higher source. And so in this example, it's high, and she is represented by being like an older sister, and we're sneaking out of class, out of boring, sober, low frequency class, and we're finding like a corridor somewhere. We're sneaking off in the background, so we're kind of branching off from this frequency momentarily, and while we're kind of sneaking off, High can tell me loads of truths to help me evolve. Yeah. But yeah, we are in a paradoxical and tricky situation, because the truths of what's possible and the roads that lay ahead of us, like energetically speaking, the paths will most likely rely on us letting go of this lower frequency experience, letting go of our toys, letting go of our will to stay here and stay playing and stay manifesting with the limitations. Because we want to grow up, and we're being told to grow up, but we're not listening. So because we're not listening, we need to be fed, drip fed pieces of information, kind of subconsciously, unconsciously, however forms that the back doors the High needs to take in order to get through to us and get us to behave. Because, you know, we need to go back home. We need to go find like mum, dad, you know, we need to go find our higher evolutionary forms who also have some form of responsibility over us to try and help us as like a family of consciousness. We need to carry on evolving, carry on this journey, on this epic, inconceivable, incomprehensible journey that consciousness as a whole family, all these manifestations of, all these characters of, in order to tell stories of, in order to better communicate to our lower selves of. In this instance, this is what it portrays, this picture of different forms of consciousness taking on different characters within a narrative to help tell a story, to communicate in order to evolve. So us, we're humans in this state, we're symbolized, we're characterized as ego, and ego is this child. And in my now case, I'm seeing it as High takes on the character of an older sister. And so that's starting to form my family now. I need to recognize who High is. I need to listen more, tune in more, hang out more, synchronize more. Ah, wouldn't that be amazing? If I could dance with my sister.